So he told you a little bit about me. Here's my 3 words. Excited to be here. Happy that the sun is out, although I don't seem to see it anymore. Maybe it's just the hour. And optimistic for everyone to be able to find that job that you're all looking for. And oh, because my slides are hard. When I walked past these slides earlier, I was like, this is good because I'm short. And I didn't block your view, so I can walk back and forth. So I'll apologize because I'm a walker. And so you're going to see my head somewhere around here in a few places. So tell me a little bit about, well, let me tell you first what we're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about, why would you have a presentation about project management and job searching? How do they relate? Why is a job search like a project? So we're going to talk a little bit about that, and I'll share with you the official project management stages that, according to the Project Management Institute. We're not going to spend a lot of time on that, but it sort of is a way to chunk up a project cycle. And those of you who, I heard some of you are project managers or have done some project management, they'll be pretty familiar. But it's also sort of common sense. And we're going to talk a lot, though, about how you would apply some of these concepts to looking for your own job. The way I'm going to approach it is I'm going to talk a little bit about a project management concept or 2 or 3, and then we're going to talk about how to apply that to a job search. How much time? I know we started late. So what time?
1 hour.
Okay, 1 hour. You're going to still give me the hour. I'll take
Absolutely.
it. All right. So a little bit about me. You already heard most of that about me. So I've been doing this for a long time and working primarily with nonprofits and associations. I spoke here in 2016 on launching a consulting practice, I think. And so I'm really happy to be here again. My view is that project management, and I don't do only project management, but that seems to be something that many of my clients are really looking for, is ways to be more efficient. And so I've drawn on the last 20, 25 years of project management experience in working with them, because it doesn't really matter what kind of project you're doing, the kinds of concepts and principles that project management teaches can be helpful, whether it's a space launch. Now the week before, I was in Florida when they launched a rocket, and I was in Central Florida, which wasn't very far from where they launched the rocket. So I went with my mom, we played euchre, and then we're like, it's 8:45, the rocket launch is going to happen. So we went outside, and you could see it. It was really cool. Sorry, it's just a little thing to share. So anyway, so whether it is a launch of a project or an environmental stream cleanup, or whether you're planning, your granddaughter's 5th birthday party. This past weekend was my grandson's 5th birthday party, superhero birthday party. Project management plays into all of it. And it contributes to any mission, just like your job search. But how? Who can tell me? Well, first of all, raise your hand if you are somebody who is, searching. Now, most of you are searching for a new transition or in the process at some point. Who's on top of theirs? Anybody? I got a couple of hands sort of raised.
Some days.
Who feels like there's so many things that I'm juggling, so many things, and that last ball, you're really afraid you're going to drop that last ball that's your dream job. And that's what we're going to try to help you with today, is some ways to approach your search that can help you. So why is project management something we want to talk about? Here's the 4 things that make up a project. How does a job search relate to those? It's got a group of activities, right? A specific group. You know when you're going to be done, right? When are you going to be done with your job search? When you get a job. When are you going to start?
Yeah.
The job is the unique deliverable. And there may or may not be a budget, but you probably have some budget, or the organizations you're applying to have a budget relative to, how many jobs are you going to fly to for the interview versus stick around? Are you looking for jobs in the local area? Are you looking for jobs where you're going to have to commute? You know, all of those kinds of things, you know, as far as the job search goes, may factor in. Just like any project will have its own budget. And how can it help? How many times have you filled out the application, it's an online application, and you hit 10? Oh, I should have done this, and if I would have done that, I could have done something else. Or you walk out of the interview, and they've asked you a question that you didn't quite understand. This happened one of my first job interviews. Out of college, they asked me a question about marketing, and I knew nothing about marketing. I didn't even know what really marketing was at the time. And you know, you're 20 years old or something, and I made up an answer. And then I learned what marketing was, and I'm like, I totally blew that answer. So hopefully having some planning and doing some planning up front is going to help you stay away from the woulda, coulda, shoulda factor. And keep you from feeling like, oh my God, I got to do this one. And now I've got to do this one. And oh, I've got to do that. It's like the whack-a-mole. You'll never catch up. You'll never catch up. When I talk about project management to an organization, I talk about these, and I'm not going to read them all to you, but what better project management can help you with. Now, think about this list relative to a job search. How would finding more discretionary time help you with your job search? How would, if you were able to get started faster? The job search is one of those things where you hope you don't have to go through it very often, every 20 years or so. It's been a long time since I've done it for a full-time job, although as an entrepreneur, I'm constantly doing it, right? Doing it all the time. So parts of the project management helps repeatability. It helps you do things in a cycle over and over and over. And those of you who have done any project management know that having repeatable processes that you can just, okay, I know I need to start this again. Let me pull out my checklist, a to-do list, a template, and you can just follow through the steps. In the job search process, hopefully you're not going to have to go through very many job searches, but throughout the job search, you're doing a cycle of activities. You're applying, you're following up, you're hoping to get interviews, you're doing your thank you notes, and all of those kinds of things over and over and over. So you can almost think of, you actually can think of an individual application as a project. So you have this, you have this overall project that's your job search, and within that, every one, you can think of it as a series of projects. It has a beginning, and it has a middle, and it has an end, and it has a unique result, which is either an offer letter, or you're not the right fit for us, or you deciding I'm not the right fit, and thanks but no thanks, right? So all of these things are reasons why you want to do some project management. What does this number mean? Anybody know? 1440. I bet him I didn't see one. Or I did, but you had a hat on. I didn't recognize you. Anybody know what 1440 means? The number of minutes in a 24-hour period. It's the number of minutes that you can't get back once you use one up. You've chosen to spend an hour, hour and a half in this session, and so my job is to make your hour and a half's worth of the 90 minutes of the 1,440 that are in your 24-hour day worth it, so that you can walk away with some tools and ideas that you can use in your job search or job. Anything that we talk about today, once you get your job, you can use it there too. You can use it to plan your next birthday party for your family. You can use it to plan your next vacation. I know people who've done these elaborate project management spreadsheets who plan their wedding that way. It's your most important resource because once you use one, we can't get it back. So using concepts of project management can help you find ways to save time, to make you have more discretionary time, to not waste the time that you have. Because we're always too busy, right? Every one of us is too busy, and finding ways to save discretionary time and build in more processes helps us stay away from being those first two guys up there who are just too busy to, doing what they're doing and having, blinders on to take the opportunity and take the ideas that are presented to them. Project Management Institute says that there's 5 stages of a project, and this makes sense. Somebody has to decide that it's time to start something, right? You never start something unless you get laid off, or unless you start seeing the writing on the wall, or unless you start deciding that, things they've got to be greener on the other side. Something has triggered you to decide to start thinking about what you want to do. And then once you have initiated that process, you start planning for it. And when you finish your plan, then you start really executing it and really making it happen and starting that job application cycle. And throughout that whole thing, you're monitoring and controlling and watching what's going on and making adjustments as you go along, because you're never going to get, no project ever ends the way you think it's going to when you start. It just doesn't happen. And then at some point, as I said, I'm optimistic that you've learned what you need to learn through 40 Plus and others, and you've got a job offer that happens, and then you start ramping things down. But you don't just stop there. There's some things that you want to do to wrap up your job search project. And so we're going to walk through these real at a high level here. These are the things that project management talks about. And we're going to start with initiating. So initiating is really, it's the birth of the project. It's figuring out, the grass is greener. I'm going to initiate this new job search. Well, so what is it what's my real goal? Do I want to find just another job doing the same thing? Do I want to make a new career transition? Do I need more money because I'm not making enough? Is it that I'm trying to find a better quality of life? What are those things that you're trying to do? You're trying to define the goals of your job search, the goals of the project, the expectations of your key stakeholders. And we're going to talk about who those people are in a minute. And at some point, you decide, okay, I'm really going to do it. I'm really going to start getting ready to send out my first job application. It's really going to happen. You've defined your goals. Goals are about what is really needs to be accomplished. Why are you doing it? What's causing you to make this leap? How do you know when you're done? It's not just the job offer. You take the first job offer that comes along. Maybe, maybe not. How do you decide? How do you know if you're done? How do you know if you've gotten enough job offers? Do you have criteria? Have you set up criteria? Those kinds of things are in this initiation stage, the planning. And then, whether you, in a project, you would typically document them in some way. In a job search, you may have a Post-it note. I've done things where I've had a Post-it note. I'm like, okay, this is what I need. And as you go along, it might become a little bit more and a little bit more. You may formalize it. You may have just a discussion with a friend, a colleague, a spouse, on what it is that I'm really looking for in this job search once I'm going to go after it. And I see a lot of you taking notes. I will offer, if you leave me a business card, I will offer to send you the slides or give you a link to the slides, the specific slides. And then they're videotaping us, and to post the videotape up on YouTube, so you'll be able to watch it again. Or those who haven't come can watch it. So initiating the project, what does that mean for the job search? Most of you, when you did your introductions, were searching for jobs because some of you got let go from your last job. Some of you are just looking for something new and different and ready for your next career change. This is a 40-plus group. When you get to be 40-plus, 50-plus, 60-plus, we're not done yet. You got lots of stuff to do. Got lots more fun to have, right?
Exactly.
I know. And so there's a point where you get enough of this gray hair that you decide, okay, I need something that warms my heart a little more. I need something that I can have fun and go to work and not have to work anymore because I'm getting paid to have the fun that I like to do, the things that I really want to do. We all are going after job searches for a variety of different ways. And so part of initiating your job search is figuring out what those things are for yourself, and where everybody in here has a different list. We may have some of the same kinds of things on our list, but we all have different lists. I went out on my own because I needed to have more freedom and more flexibility and more independence in what I do. I stopped subcontracting on an hourly basis to government contractors, and I started working with the nonprofit group because I needed something to fill my heart more than designing a telephone bill for Bell Atlantic or Verizon, I guess. So each of you are going to have those kinds of things and figure those things out for yourself. What kind of job you're looking for, where do you want it to be, what's the salary range going to be, and somebody has to give you authorization to begin. In some cases, that's just me. I decided. I'm authorizing my own job search. In some cases, you have to talk to a significant other. In some cases, you may have to talk to an employer. But something is going to kick off your job search just like any other project. And then it's time to really get down into the details and start planning for it. These are the basic steps for planning a project. Who are the stakeholders? Who are the, what are the requirements? Defining the scope. The scope sets the boundaries about what's in and what's out. What are we going to do? What are we definitely not going to do? So all of these are the activities that are involved in planning a project. We don't plan to fail, but we don't always plan. And what happens if you go into a job search and you haven't planned anything out? Okay, I just got to go find a job. How often would you likely apply for the wrong job if you haven't sat and thought it through? Even if it's just over a cup of coffee with yourself, what kind of job am I really looking for? Many of you have taken or are taking the 40-plus class. I don't know anything about I am not a job search expert by any means. But I can't imagine you coming through this class and them not teaching you or talking about what kinds of things are you going after? What are your skills and what are you best at? And what are your interests? All of those kinds of things. If you didn't do any of that and you just started, there's a job, I gotta apply for that. There's a job. It's I used to call it something else. Somebody call it spray and pray, but I don't like that one. I need to find another one. There's another term I used and now I'm drawing the blank. Preparation is also a way to become more confident when you walk in the door and over the threshold of the organization that you're applying to, and you feel like you belong there. You feel like this is the job you need to hire me. Now, you don't necessarily say that. I wouldn't necessarily advocate saying it quite like that. But you need to feel it. Job employers are looking for confidence frequently. And the more prepared you are when you walk in the door, the more you fill up the room with your energy, and more people look at you and say, you know, I want her to be on my team. I want him to be working here. Preparation helps you get there. Who are the stakeholders for your job search? Name one, anybody.
Yourself.
Yourself, bigger one. Who else?
The employer.
The employer.
Colleagues.
Colleagues. Anybody else?
Family.
Family, big one. In the project world, and you can think about how these relate to the job search, it's somebody who has a stake in the game with your project. It's somebody who might be paying for it. They have a stake, right? It's somebody who could be making a profit from it. Now some of these may or may not apply to the job search. If somebody is for or against it, think about that in terms of an employer. They're for you, they're against you, they're sort of on the fence, they don't know anything about you yet. The employer, you're working to find ways to decrease their resistance and help and gain their influence and gain their support for your job search. So all of these are stakeholders in your process. Thinking about how they can support, how they can influence, how they can help, and how to reduce any resistance that you have can be a good activity for a job search or any other project. Every time I take on a project, I will almost always take a piece of paper, sometimes it's a Starbucks napkin, and write out all of the people who are stakeholders in that project and whether I feel like they're, how much do they know about the project? How much are they for it, against it? What kinds of things can I do to move them a little bit more for it? So anyway, so that's the kind of stakeholders you're talking about for your job. And then the requirements. So figuring out what it is you want to get. In a project, it's what are you building? What are you creating? What service are you developing? Gathering information from past projects to help define what you're really looking for and what your requirements are. And a job search is gathering information from past job searches. It's gathering information from resources that 40 Plus might provide. Any of those kinds of things to help you decide what kind of job are you going after. Are you going after that dream job? Are you going after just another job that pays the bills? What kind of thing? To think about and really dream about what it is we're looking for here. Talked about stakeholders. We're looking at what are the, coming up with your criteria. What are the nice to haves? What are the must haves? What are the, oh God, if only I could haves? All of those kinds of things. Thinking through what those would be for yourself. A lot of it's what's important to you. So is it, what is important to you? Salary may or may not be as important as benefits or as the flexibility in schedule or culture. You might be making just enough at your current job. Benefits might be great. Schedule's good. But I hate the people I work with. I hate my boss. The culture doesn't feel, it's just not me. What is it for you in your current job search or in one that you're thinking about going forward? It's all about balance. It's about balancing what you want, what you'd like to have, and what you really need to have. So if I said, you know, let's think about buying a car. You know, I need a car. Now, I drive an old 2003 Honda CR-V. I need a car. I really do need a new car. It's got 190,000 miles on it or something. But I'm not going to get one right now. But if I decided I wanted a car, what kind of car would I want? I'm going to come up with some requirements for that car. But if I told you I want a Mini, well, am I looking for a Mini Cooper? Or am I looking for a minivan? So it's being specific. That was the point of that. Short slide. Is being specific, not just being general, oh, I just need a new job, but being specific about what kind of job, what are the specific things you're going after, what are the characteristics, the qualities, the quality of life issues that you are looking for in your new job, the challenges, all of those kinds of things. And that helps define the scope. Have people heard about, you know what scope is? Anybody not know what defining the scope of a project means? So defining the scope is about, see, I'm going to use the chart. I didn't know I was going to use this or not. What's in scope and what's out of scope. The things, when you're thinking about a project or a job search, thinking about, okay, so thinking about all your requirements, you might have all kinds of requirements, right? But if you think about it, not every single requirement, not every job is going to fit every single requirement. If you're thinking about a project, you're planning a project, there may be a lot of things that you might want to incorporate as part of this project, but because you have certain constraints, or you have certain acceptance criteria, or a certain length of time, or a certain something, not everything can be incorporated into your project. The things that will get incorporated into the project are what you define as part of your scope. Now in a job search, let's take them a little bit at a time. What's the acceptance criteria for your job search? What are your minimum, what's the salary range you're going after? There's usually a minimum. I have to have this much just to pay my bills. Or this much, I'm not going to take a job without having enough to pay my bills and put money in retirement. Or pay my bills and save for my son's college education. Or whatever those numbers are. I'm not going to take a job without having a certain level of flexibility or have it being a certain location. All of those acceptance criteria are important for you to think through as you're thinking about the kinds of jobs you're going to apply to. What do you need to prepare? So what are the deliverables? For any project, you're going to have deliverables. For job search, you're going to have need a resume or a vita or something, a skills summary, cover letters, thank you note templates, writing samples maybe, depends on, and there may be others depending on the types of jobs you may be looking for. What are you not going to take? There may be things that are that you want to make sure are out of scope. If you come across this job opportunity, I send you something and say, hey, I think this might be really good for Fernando here. You're going to weigh that against your criteria and say, nope, that's not part of it. I'm going to exclude jobs that fall into that range. So finding out what your scope is, you have the things that are going to be in scope And then these other things may be jobs, but I don't want to do these because these are not part of my job description or my desired characteristics. And what assumptions and constraints do we have? Thinking about those relative to your job is important too. Sometimes we make assumptions that may not be true. Like I'm going to assume, if I were applying for a job, I'm going to assume that you were talking about junior level, right? What are our assumptions around, and I heard a lot of people like, I heard a lot of mm-hms, right? Junior level versus senior level, overqualified versus underqualified. Where's the difference? It's going to depend on the job, but making certain assumptions. Do you not apply for a job because you're assuming you're overqualified? Do you not apply for a job because you're assuming you're underqualified? Figuring out what assumptions you want to pay attention to, what assumptions you're making without really thinking about it. Just sitting down and looking at the list of jobs that you're looking for and your qualifications and so forth, and thinking about, so what assumptions am I making? And are they true? And how do I find out if they're true? Asking yourself, talking to colleagues, talking to experts here at Voting Plus about some of those assumptions might help, shed a light on some of the things that you're going to go thinking about. What are some of the constraints? Some constraints may be, relative to the job search. If you're working in another job, excuse me. Working in another job, you're only going to have a certain amount of time that you can carve out for applying for new jobs, right? It's not a 40-hour job search. May not be a 40-hour a week job to do the job search, although it may be. Maybe it's 40 hours in the evenings or the weekends or something. But figuring out what are your constraints and factoring all of that in. Figuring out what are the risks, which may or may not be as important for a job search, but there's still some risks that you don't find a job in the same time frame that your money before your reserves run out, right? And what are you going to do to mitigate that risk? What I like to tell folks to do for finding a project is when it's, we figured out what our scope is, all of these activities, we know what the boundaries are around what our project is for our job search, the scope of our project. Now it's time to plan it. So what are all of the things that I need to do? And what I'll frequently do with a project team is get in a room like this with a lot of blank wall space. I love blank wall space. And a bunch of Post-it notes or flip charts, butcher paper, markers, all those kinds of things, and just to have people brainstorm about what activities are going to need to go into this project. For me, when I'm launching a new program or launching a new training program or something, I do the same kind of thing. I either do it on a Post-it note or I do it electronically, and I'll share some other tools with you. And I brainstorm what are all of the things that I'm going to need to do. And then I group them into categories. And then I try to sequence them and put them on what needs to be done first. And I ask myself for every single task, every single activity, what could I do this task right now? Or is there something that needs to be done before that task can start? Or does it have to be finished before some other task can begin? So you start to think about laying those kinds of things out. Because what you're then going to do is you're building, in project management speak, a work breakdown structure, where your goal is to get whatever the project goal, in our case it's going to be a new job. And you're going to have three three fit on the slide. However many main deliverables you have. And then how do you break those down, and how do you break those down even further? In a job search, you're trying to get a new job. You want to figure out what your requirements are. You're going to have to get this resume and maybe your LinkedIn profile and some other profiles up to date. You're going to have to be ready for the interview. What are you going to wear? Do you have a suit, or does it require suits anymore? I don't even know the answer. You're going to take the 40+ class. And then you're going to go executing your job search. And there may be other things along the way. Figuring out the job's requirements, goals, checklist, self-reflection, resume, pulling it out from the last job search, updating all of those certifications and awards, your experience, making sure somebody else proofreads it, whether that's your A student, teenage son or daughter, or your friend, or somebody here at 40+, get somebody to proofread your resume. I can't tell you how many times I've tossed resumes, because if they're not detailed enough to make sure somebody reads it over and doesn't have a lot of mistakes, then the kind of jobs that I used to hire people for, they wouldn't work well here. So then you have a work breakdown structure. It's a list of all of the tasks grouped together that you can use to organize your job search, to organize your project. Thinking through a checklist of what needs to happen in order for you to conduct this job search. What research do you need to do about the jobs, about your interviewing skills? How are you going to be able to use your own network? Who do you need to meet? Where do they factor into your plan? And then we think about the cycle of job searches, the application cycle. How do you find the opportunity? I'm not here to tell you how to find the opportunities, because that's going to be different for all of you. But thinking through laying out your job search project in a way that you can track all of these activities. So you found the opportunity. Someone I talked to earlier said I have folders for different different kinds of jobs and different kinds of resumes and so forth. If you're going to have multiple, like a tailored resume for each one, how do you keep all of that organized? How do you track and know if you've got 10 job applications out there or 50 job applications out there? How are you keeping track of where you stand and which resume you sent to which one? Is that a problem for anybody? Create a schedule. We talked about this earlier. Okay. Here's a list of, and again, you'll have this slide deck, so you'll have these. Here's a list of tools that may help you. And the one that I'm most familiar with is the one on the top, Trello. Does anybody use Trello, or are you familiar with Trello? Okay. We can talk about Trello at a high level. I've got a couple of screenshots in here that I'll talk to you about. Are you familiar with the term Kanban board? Okay, a couple of people. So a Kanban board is, it's a way that you can manage a project or kind of track activities at what stage they are. I'm going to describe no, you do it. Tell us what a Kanban board is.
Well, in my former job, it was used to track or to see where all the casework was in the legal office at any point.
All the casework in a legal office. Okay,
yes,
right?
And they used an entire wall and with different coded post-it notes.
Yeah.
And I think the main idea was to find where projects were stuck with external parties or waiting for responses,
Okay,
et cetera. I mean,
okay, yep.
that's my relationship.
Anybody else have an example of what a Kanban board is or what it's used for? So, just like what you were saying it was a case management system, the way you were doing case management. For project management, it might be, if you were not doing an IT project, there might be design stage, there might be development stage, like requirement stage, design stage, development. You're building it, you're testing it, and you're implementing it. And if you've got, let's make it easy, 10 tasks to do this, where is each one of them? And Trello has its concept of a board, and all of those tools that I listed have this concept of a Kanban board in them. But think about this from a job search perspective. Well, and first of all, Trello, this particular one is just a screenshot. They come with one that's already built, set up, a template that you could use. Trello is free. And so there's each one of these columns is you can use like a stage. And I've got another, it can go on as long as you really want. Each one of these, they call a card. And if you click on any one of the cards, you can add comments. You could create checklists inside of the card. I didn't bring any examples, but I'm happy to show people this later. You can attach files. You can do all of those kinds of things. And then let's say this is the prep work here. Once you have your resume ready, then you can move it into a different stage. I've got another. I put it in a different class, right here. So you might have a stage called applied, follow-up, phone screen, interview. What's that one? On-site interview. Job offer, negotiation, thank you letter, or whatever. You can create a card for each one of the jobs you're applying for. Within that card, inside the card, when you click on it, it opens up a whole other screen. You might have, okay, for that job, here's a checklist of things that I know I need to do for that job. I need to get my resume tailored. I need to get my cover letter written. I need to research the company. I need to figure out who I want to call within the company. Maybe this is a target, or it's a job that you're actually applying for. You can put all of those in there. If you have a different resume for every single job, you can attach it to the card inside there. And then if you had a thank you note, all of the things, communications you've written, you might save an email into PDF format and attach it there. You can even email someone and then CC your Trello board. And then it goes into a default board, and then you can move that so that if you could track your email conversation with a company. And then you can open up and you can search. I love the search feature. So if you got the phone call that says, hey Linda, this is ABC company. You applied for a job here, and we'd like to talk to you about an interview. Which resume did I send them? What was that job? I don't remember that company. I don't remember this person. You go search for some keyword in the resume, something in the email, some job information about that, a note. You can go in and make comments about the note, and it will bring up all of the cards and the documents and show you, and like, oh yeah, I remember that. So that can be a really useful thing, and you can move the card then from I applied and you can create each one of these. You get to create whatever you want, whatever it means to you, what's meaningful to you. Yes.
When you said deadline and reminders, because I'm going to lose track of the time as far as the week.
Yeah, there's with Trello, it's a free tool. There are these power-ups. that you can add, like different add-ins, sort of. I don't remember the deadlines, some of them, I think there's a way to put a due date on here, so that it shows up on the card. I don't know how much exactly that it integrates with a calendar. Some of the other tools that I showed you are like there's Asana, that's more of a project management tool. You can lay out things like a Gantt chart. There's a couple that are specific to jobs. And I don't know anything about them. I just, in preparing for this talk, I found them and I put them up here. 40 Plus or somebody here may know more about them. I don't know. But there are some things that you can do there in the free version. I use the free version for managing a lot of my projects and my work, and you can collaborate in there with other people. So that may be a way to help you keep track of things. What it doesn't do is it doesn't let you like take a step back. Okay, let me see. I'm a spreadsheet person. I want to see all the jobs and kind of what they are and be able to filter and sort and all of that. You don't get that big dashboard kind of view in this particular tool. So using this and another kind of spreadsheet might be useful.
So I don't have that because I just learned about it today, but when I send my resumes, I have a general folder, like within my sent folder in my email, and then also I will have a folder for the company, especially if it's been more than one contact. But you know how within an email that you're sending, you can put a reminder, a date in it for follow-up. And then that'll be on your calendar, so that's helpful for me too because I forget everything. So if you need to follow up with them for a week, like I'll have the position description, the cover letter, whichever resume I send, and all of that'll be in the folder. And so if I need to follow up with them like in a week to get a status update, I'll just put a reminder note, put the specific date, and if you want, even the time. And then that will be on your Outlook calendar if that's what you use. And it'll send you the reminder to follow up with them. So.
Great. Thank you. Anyway, so that's Trello. These other tools, Hunter.co and Jobber.com, look like they're job search specific kinds of tools. You can check those out. Kanbantool.com is another tool that supports this Kanban method, moving a card from one stage to another. And Meistertask is also another tool. And I put these on here because there are free versions. There's lots of tools. If you go Google, how to manage, job search tools, project management tools for job search, you'll come up with some other ones as well. But inside this one, if you go to Trello, it's got these. If you open some of these up, it not only tells you how to use the tool, but then there's some ideas in there about the kinds of things. Like if you open this up, there's a list of job search sites and other resume resources that are built into the tool. So Trello can be a useful thing whether you end up using the tool or not. You might get some additional resources. Whether it's any more valuable than the humongous list of resources that 40 Plus gives you, I don't know. Once you've you've kicked off and you're executing your job search, this is where keeping track of all of that information is helpful. Keeping track of when did I apply, what date did I do all of the different things. It's time consuming to manage this sort of thing, but if somebody calls you and you're trying to figure out, well, who do I need to follow up with next? And what are all the people I need to follow up with? Because it's been a week since I sent, I haven't heard anything. Did it go into the black hole of resumes or is it somebody I just need to, give a call and a shout out to? Having a detailed list, whether on the computer, whether on a notebook, something that you can just quickly go to. You can do that by looking at Trello. You're going to have all of the companies that you applied for in the applied place, so you know where they stand, and you can always create new lists. Each column is called a list. You always create new ones. I tend to create all these new ones, and I'm like, oh, that's too many. Then I have to just make it work for you. But keeping track of everything is critical, but just like a project. Defining your requirements, coming up with your schedule, coming up with your plan, having a way to monitor and track the status. All of those things are basic project management processes and skills for executing the project. This is pretty basic project management slide. I just left it in here. And we've talked about most everything in here. Monitoring risk. If you're running on savings and if your job search is taking longer, the risk of running out of savings, what is your plan to mitigate that risk? Keeping on top of those kinds of things, whatever the risks are for your job search. Monitoring all of those and then figuring out what you need to do to adjust and controlling for all of that. Taking corrective and preventative actions. The more on top of monitoring your progress you are, the better you're going to be able to adjust and jump when necessary. Talk about this slide. Here's the link for this particular template. Again, I'll send you the stuff if you want. All right, somewhere between here and here, good things have happened. Hopefully you've gotten not only a job offer, but the job offer that you want to accept. And you're excited because you've been hopeful, and you're optimistic, and you're happy, not just because the sun's out, but because now my bank account's going to get sunnier. But is that where you stop with your job search project? What kind of records do you want to save off? What kind of records would you want to keep? You got 42,000 resumes now. You got all various kinds of cover letters. Anybody?
The one that got results? Interviews?
That's one, yeah. Notes from interviews that you might not want to lose track of. I've become friends with people that I applied for jobs with and didn't get them sometimes because I followed up, and then you're like, and you never know, because for me, I'm not looking for a full-time job. I'm frequently looking for a short-term project or a long-term project. But I've made friends with people who've never hired me because I kept in touch with them. And I've kept in touch with different people that have interviewed me, both when I was looking for full-time work and when I was looking for other kinds of work. People who have interviewed me because, sometimes you just hit it off. So keeping your resumes, maybe not just the one that worked, but figuring out what it is about that one and coming up with the one that you would start with the next time. How did you do? What sources did you use that were getting the most positive hits? Keeping I'll be honest, do we really do this? No, but I would, not always, but I would advocate for it, is to try to make those notes while it's still fresh once you apply for your job. Keep your, this is my master list. These are the sources that worked really well. These are the people who referred me the most. These are the the kinds of things that I learned from this job search and that I will remind myself to do again. Put it in Evernote, put it in a folder, put it in some place that you can use, even if it's not your job search. It might be a job search of a colleague that you've met here at 40 Plus who might, benefit from knowing that same kind of information that worked for you. but this is the closing phase. You know, you got that job offer, you're gonna accept the salary, you've negotiated your, all of the benefits and everything. Save your final resume, figure out how long did it take so that next time, maybe the next 20 years, you have some idea of how much time to think about it, what you learned, and use all your people skills. Every one of them. They all come into play on the job search and any project. Because we wear many hats. You know, we're the historian, we're the fortune teller, we're the cop, we're the leader, we're the, you know, we can be anything. Requirements, plan, organize, track the details. And good luck. So hopefully you have a better understanding of how, ways that you could use some project management in your job search. If you want a copy of the slides, here's some references. This one was really interesting. She wrote a book called Manage Your Job Search, and so I found her stuff pretty interesting. But if you want a copy of the slides, you send me just bring your card up. I also have a newsletter with project management tips and, you know, helpful things to make your nonprofit stronger. Doesn't have a lot of project management things that it's a new blog, I'll just let you know that for sure. But we'll take your card, I'll add you to that list. If you don't want that to be added to that list, just write no tips on the back of your card. But otherwise, I'll just send you a copy of the slide or a link to get where you can get the slides. Any questions? I think we've been taking questions all along. Oh, sorry, yes.
That's okay. In terms of researching, just in general with project management, would you say that researching is most relevant to the first phase or the second?
Oh, where does it fit within the phases?
Right, initiating.
I think there's probably multiple places where you would research, right? So you're going to research about what kinds of jobs am I going to look for. Then you're going to do some other research about a specific kind of job.
So probably one and two.
Yeah, and to be honest, it doesn't matter which. There's a lot. You could go to 15 different project managers, and they're going to tell you different things. Or, well, this is an initiation phase. Oh no, this is a planning phase. Oh no, this is execution. Because it's really iterative when you get inside there. It doesn't matter to your job search whether you call it initiating or planning or something. What's important is to just have a process. But my sense is you're going to do some research to figure out in general, and then you're going to do company-specific, job-specific kinds of research too. Any other questions?
I have to try to stop.
Yes. Okay.
Is your being in gear?
It is.
Okay, 1440, okay? You said that?
Yes.
Okay, this is the time we have to play with. I know this is a hard question, and I appreciate
Don't make me do
the
math,
range.
please.
No, you have to do math.
Oh, good.
But you have to just tell me, in your infinite wisdom and experience, how many hours a day, a range, I'm not, asking for some specific, would you recommend working in a job search if you wanted to find a job, say within a month?
Oh, I can't answer that question.
Okay.
And it's a safe answer,
It's fair.
but it's
Fair
true
question,
because how many hours a day? If I were working full-time, I'm not going to have 24 hours or 16 hours in a day. If I've got to find a job really soon, because I don't have any money coming in and my savings are running low, I'm going to spend more time. If I'm looking for a job that is going to require a lot of resumes versus a targeted number versus I'm working my network, it's an impossible question to answer from my perspective anyway. So as I said, I'm not a job search expert about how to apply a process. I don't know. But once you figure out what you want to do, factoring that into your schedule is the critical part. I don't know, other people, anybody else have a answer to?
Tough question, I know that, that's
It-
why I
it
put it
is.
out there. It's-
Yeah, no, it is,
yeah.
and it's probably a question that we're all asking.
Okay.
So it's, for me, my version of that is, how much time every day do I spend on marketing versus, working on my business versus working in my business? Depends.
Good answer, I appreciate that.
The 1440, this resource here, this guy wrote an article on 1440 and that was it was an interesting article because it was about how he got some of his time back.
Okay, well, see, that's what I was getting at, maybe somebody already answered it, sort of,
Yeah, he's a productivity consultant, but that's an article he wrote in Forbes and he's done a bunch of other things. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.